Alright, back once again with a Top of the Pops commentary / reaction. This one is from, let me double check, the 25th of May 1989. 31 years ago. And your host for this episode is Simon Mayo, named after a condiment. Well, that's his surname, and even then that's not actually true. Oh, excellent. What a way to start with one of my favourite novelty songs. One of my favourite one-hit wonders of all time. At number 5, Edelweiss with Bring Me Edelweiss. I love this. I have the single on 7-inch vinyl. Loved this when it came out, back when I was almost 9 years old. I mean, this is just tons of fun, this tune. From what I know about Edelweiss, I think it was a couple of guys from Austria, and they had the idea to release this single. I think it was a hit in Europe a good 6 months, maybe as much as a year before it was a hit in the UK. But they had got the idea from reading the manual by the KLF, and that was a book that the KLF members, Bill Drummond and Jimmy Corti, had written and put out, that detailed how to have a #1 hit record in as easy way as possible. And that came out, I think, around the time, either just before or just after, they got to #1 with Doctor in the TARDIS. That's my understanding of how Edelweiss and Bring Me Edelweiss came to be anyway. I know they had other hits after this in Europe. I think this is certainly the only top 10 hit that they had in the UK. I'm not even sure they made the top 40 after this, but they sort of had a little bit more traction, as it were, in mainland Europe. But for us here in Britain, this is kind of like a one-hit wonder, but it's great. It samples or interpretates, if that's the right word, a lot of familiar tunes, such as the obvious one, the chorus now being a version of SOS by ABBA. Of course, Edelweiss itself, that's referencing the song from, I think it's The Sound of Music, isn't it? I love this, woo! And then going into this sort of housey piano bit. Marvellous. Look at this, just very anarchic performance as well. Well, why not, Why do we always have to be serious? Brilliant. I don't think that gets higher than 5. Ooh. Okay. Was this raunchy? I remember when this came out. It's new entry at 26. Funky Cold Medina by Tone Loc. So they played the promo video, obviously. I suppose by the standards of the time you could call it raunchy. It kind of seems a bit of an archaic term now, doesn't it? It sounds like something like that'd be used to describe sort of an erotic film star by a tabloid newspaper or something. Raunchy actress such and such was photographed in Milan. I don't know what the fuck I'm on about. But Tone Loc, I remember this, and I remember the other hit he had, or one of the other hits. He probably had a couple more, but the other big hit of his I remember was Wild Thing. Funky Cold Medina, I think, came out before that. But I can't really say what's happened to him. Anything interesting that I research about Tone Loc, be it what he's up to now, if anything. I always feel awful saying this, but I'm not even certain that he's still alive. But I'll put it up on screen, obviously. This is pretty good. Yeah, rap was starting to take off and get even more mainstream around this point in the late 80s. Sort of his contemporaries of the time. I think Eric B and Rakim were still pretty big around this point. We've got Public Enemy, of course, who I don't really consider much of a singles group, even though they have had a handful of very memorable singles. I think they, associate them with more sort of their iconic albums. But they were certainly from a similar time. So there we are. That was Tone Loc. Okay, Ace. First, look at the charts countdown 40 to 31. Oh, I don't remember that.
Number 39 is Disappointed, that's Public Image Limited. New entry at 38, Just Keep Rockin', Double Trouble and the Rebel MC. 37, a new entry, Nothing That Compares to You from the Jacksons. New entry at 36, I Drove All
Cover of a Roy Orbison song there.
Psychonaut, Fields of Nephilim is a new entry at 35. 34, I'll Be There,
Yeah.
from Bon Jovi. Fuzzbox and Pink Sunshine.
Quite like that. That's a nice, fun track. Don't like that. I think Yaz didn't really do that much good. Oh, Robert Bloody Palmer.
Now we go to number 21 and a soul classic. Everyone has covered it. It's never been a hit until 1989 with Can I Get a Witness? This is Sam Brown.
Oh, right. Can I Get a Witness? It's a cover version of an old soul track. I'll put who recorded it originally up on screen. This is Sam Brown. Yeah, Sam Brown, she would have had a hit, I think, a few months prior to this release, with Stop. That got top 5, I believe. It was an alright song. Sort of, more sort of slower soul. So this, I think, was probably a follow-up single to that. I don't think this got much higher than what it is here. It may have scraped the top 20. I'm pretty certain it didn't get in the top 10. Is that Reg Hollis from The Bill in this video? In with a hat on. Looks like... I'll ask Abigail Barry. She'll recognise him. She's a massive Bill fan. So if that's Reg Hollis, the guy in the pork pie hat, she'll know. It looks like him anyway. But Sam Brown, she's done a lot of backing singer work. I do remember she worked with Pink Floyd a lot when they were touring last, which that was a good 25 or more years ago. So I think she had this sort of 1 or 2 year period where she was a solo singer, and a fairly successful one, but she was doing a lot of backing vocal work with other acts prior to this, and then after this as well. And that seems to be where she's at. She's probably released more solo material than, I certainly would presume her to have, but nothing that's come on my radar. But I do know she's worked with Pink Floyd, and not just the tours either. I'm pretty certain her backing vocals feature on the Division Bell album, certainly. I'm not sure about any older Pink Floyd albums, but I know she was on the Division Bell, which is an album I have on mini disc, by the way, and it was bloody expensive. That was alright. He's obsessed with yodeling today. Oh god, Robert Palmer. I change his ways, it's at number 31. I don't like Robert Palmer. I feel like I've made this comment about Robert Palmer before, even though I don't think there's been any of his songs I've reacted to on previous episodes of this series, but when I've seen him in the chart, I've sort of made comments about him. To me, he seems less like a pop star or rock star, more like some sort of slightly sleazy insurance salesman or car salesman or something. I mean, he's looking relatively casual there, about as casual as Robert Palmer can get. Anyway, I know he was popular. I know a lot of people liked him. He's just someone who I never got. I never saw the appeal. I don't think this song's particularly very good, neither. Not to my taste at all. Everyone knows Addicted to Love. It's got the very famous, much copied and parodied video of Robert Palmer there in his three-piece suit and all the heavily made-up women playing all the instruments behind him. A video that I do remember, even at the time, it was accused of being rather sexist, but... so we get to see a weird sort of promo video or put in the Top of the Pops performance there, which is weird. I don't know if this was from a film or something, like an animated film. Maybe not necessarily. It was probably just a promo video that they decided to do a cartoon version and insert Robert Palmer in it. Why you'd want to do that, I don't know. Also remember Robert Palmer's collaboration with UB40, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight. I do like UB40. That was alright. I don't know, I can't really say anything too bad about it. It's not my favourite UB40 song, but as far as Robert Palmer goes, it's probably one of the ones I like more about him. Oh, there we go. The cartoon of this video, the cartoon video of this song, rather. It's even that's parodying Robert Palmer's own Addicted to Love. A self-parody, if you will. So yeah, this is sort of white reggae, really, innit? I don't like it. Something about him, I just find him a bit sort of, you know, a bit sort of slimy. Oh, there's Jason Donovan.
Here's a question for our competition winner, Beth. What's the best program?
Neighbours.
Closely followed by Prisoner, Cell Block H. Prisoner, Cell Block H is the program, and here is the theme sung by Lynn.
Oh, right, okay. So the theme from Prisoner Cell Block H is in the charts. I did know this got to the chart. I would have said this would have made the chart a couple of years earlier than this, but obviously not. How long had Prisoner been going? Because it was obviously one of Australia's biggest exports, and it was pretty popular over here for a time. So I don't know if this was kind of sort of at the beginning of when Prisoner Cell Block H was being broadcast, or if it had been going for a few years. It feels like it's an older show than starting in '89. It's making me chuckle a bit, this song, because I've got a Happy Hardcore EP, and I showed it in a video late last year I think, that samples this song, this theme from Prisoner Cell Block H. But obviously it sort of speeds it up with the chipmunk, and I think that's just such a fun track. This one, the actual original, a little bit dreary, but it's alright. So, what was her name? Lynn? It wasn't Lynn Anderson, was it? It will have said on the screen earlier. I don't need to put who she is up on here, unless there's any interesting facts that I find out about her. On the inside, Prisoner Cell Block H, Australian media, Australian television particularly, was obviously still massive over here in the UK, and it had been really since around '86, when the BBC first started showing Neighbours, about a year and a half after it had come out originally in Australia. And then, obviously, we've got Prisoner Cell Block H, was a more gritty... I don't know if that was classed as a soap or just a drama series in Australia. Probably just a drama. And Home and Away, that came out, I think, 1988. And that was massive over here. Of course, Neighbours and Home and Away still shown in this country now, but I think the glory years were this sort of late 80s period, and then we were getting stars of Neighbours like Kylie Minogue, Jason Donovan, Stephen Dennis, Craig McLachlan as well, all having hits as, you know, pop stars. Some of them, of course, like Kylie, they've had massive longevity and they've just been really big stars for decades now.
A great debut on Top of the Pops. That's her first time. That's Lynn Anderson.
Oh, it was Lynn Anderson. Good. I didn't get it wrong after all.
At number 30, it's Poison, and Your Mama Don't Dance. Number 29
Oh,
is
bloody
Shakin'
hell.
Stevens and Love Attack. Simply Red, If You Don't Know Me By Now, is at number 28. And here's a new entry at 27, The Real Me from Wasp. Another new entry at 26 with Funky Cold Medina.
Not bad.
It's
Heard it
Tom
earlier.
Rowe. Number 25, Who's in the House.
That's pretty good. I quite enjoy that, Beatmasters. Americano's very fun pop song there. Holly Johnson released 2 or 3 good ones in a row around this point.
Number 22,
Good track from Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks there.
and up 10 places to
Can I get one? That was alright. Not something I would choose to listen to. Oh, Baby, I Don't Care, Transvision Vamp. Yeah, Wendy James.
Here's
Yeah.
the highest new entry at
I was a little bit too young to appreciate her first time around, but I certainly appreciate her now.
Brave Face, that's Paul McCartney.
Macca going up there. Midnight Oil, another Australian act there.
17.
Speaking of Australians, he's up there. I don't think he gets much higher than that, Stephen Dennis.
Is this week's number 15. Number 14, up 11, Fergus Sings the Blues from Deacon Blue. On the inside from Lynn Hamilton, up 17 to 13. Capella and Helium Hali.
Hey, I haven't heard that in years. Former number 1 there, Bangles, Eternal Flame.
11. Okay, we'll go back to number 12. The band are called Capella. That
Oh.
means in the church style.
Excellent.
Song called Helium Halib. When you translate that, it means the last thing I'm about to do is yodel.
Why is Simon Mayo insisting with this bloody yodeling joke? Like, let it go, mate. Okay, so this is a nice little flashback for me. An early acid house track from Capella. And now then, Capella, I've probably heard more remixes by Capella than actual tracks by them, but I do remember they had a chart presence in their own right for a year or two. I think as the 90s sort of progressed, they were more sort of remixers for other people. This is decent. I think I probably enjoyed this a little bit more, or a lot more, back when it first came out. I mean, look at how naff this video is. That daft-looking dancer there, just mugging to the camera all the time. But yeah, this is this is all right. I like hearing this old acid house and this old dance music from 30 odd years ago, and just, you know, back then this would have seemed sort of really futuristic and like, wow, this is, you know, this is something brand new and this is the future. And it was in a way, but things like this, when you look back on them over 3 decades later, then it does feel a little bit dated, but still a lot of fun though. A lot of fun. I feel like I'm saying a lot of fun quite a lot. It is, you know, music, that's what music should be as far as I'm concerned. You know, a lot of people take music too seriously. It's like they only stick to certain genres, they don't expand their horizons very much. And, you know, they refuse to let themselves experience things because they've got some preconceived notion about it. Whereas why? Just listen to as much as you can and enjoy as much as you can. You know, if any of it is a guilty pleasure, then fine, you know, just don't shout it from the rooftops. But, you know, I'm a great believer in eclecticism and people listening to as much as they can. You know, all kinds of stuff.
Which is our friendly green fly, or perhaps the other summer. You know, the one at number 19. You know, I don't want to get hurt. Over there on top of the pops.
So this, yeah, it's Donna Summer. New entry at number 19, I Don't Want to Get Hurt. This would have been her follow-up, I think, to a single. It was quite a big single. I think it got top 3 in the UK. This Time I Know It's For Real. That seemed to stay in the chart for quite some time as well. So I'm pretty certain this was the follow-up single to that. This isn't one that I particularly remember. I dare say I will have heard this when it originally came out, back in '89. I mean, this sounds very much like This Time I Know It's For Real. You know, there's not a lot of difference in it. style-wise. Donna Summer, obviously, you associate her more with the 1970s. I mean, she was kind of like the disco queen of the late 70s, weren't she? This sort of late 80s revival she had, I don't think it lasted very long, maybe throughout the rest of 1989, perhaps into 1990. She had a big following with, you know, disco fans and a big gay fan base, a big gay following, as it were, all over the world. And this kind of high energy, you know, new disco, as in NU-disco kind of style of music that she's purveying here. Obviously, you're going to hear that in a lot of gay clubs. So I've been told by Leroy Screwballs and Not Suitable for Mum. I quite like this. I don't love it, but I quite like it. I like a lot of high energy, funnily enough. I love Italo disco, which is sort of, that bridges the gap between normal disco music and high energy for me. It's sort of had quite a presence in the early to mid 80s. But yeah, even though this is very similar to Donna Summer's last hit record, it's fine. It's alright. Yeah.
That's Donna Summer, and I don't want to get hurt. Okay, here comes the final countdown from 10 to number
Oh, right, we're going to see what is at number 1.
And they're at number 10, Chaka Khan.
That's a remix of an old Chaka Khan track.
Number 9 is Queen, and I Want It All. Highest climber up 18 to 8, Manchild.
Good tune.
Cherry. Up 3 to 7, the
Oh, yeah, that's climbing up. Does that get to number 1? The look? Can't remember.
6, Every Little Step from Bobby Brown.
Yeah.
Number 5, Bring Me Edelweiss from
Tune.
Edelweiss. The London Boys and
I like that. That's a great Euro dance track, that.
Number 3 is Miss You Like Crazy from Natalie Cole. Number 2 is Hand on Your Heart.
Former number 1, I think.
And Britney
Ah,
for the second
yes.
is Ferry Cross the
Of course.
Mersey.
Right, various artists, Ferry Across the Mersey. Let me think who was involved in this, if I can remember. The Christians, a band from Liverpool who were fairly big at the time. Jerry Marsden from Jerry and the Pacemakers. Holly Johnson, who I think I can hear now. And was Paul McCartney involved with this as well? He may have been. Maybe self-explanatory to some of you, but for those who don't know, probably people not from the UK or maybe you were quite young, this was a charity single that was released in 1989 for victims of the Hillsborough football stadium disaster. I remember watching or getting ready to watch the FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest at my grandparents' house, and on that fateful day in April 1989, where so many people lost their lives in just a senseless, tragic accident. 94 or 96 people ended up dying, and just the sort of what happened in the media afterwards was just an absolute disgrace. I mean, I wouldn't wipe my arse with the Sun newspaper at the best of times, but, you know, the way they reported on Liverpool fans in particular, post-Hillsborough disaster, is the reason why you can hardly find a copy of the Sun newspaper in Liverpool, and rightly so. The Hillsborough fight's gone on for many years, and the fight for justice, as it were. And I'm not going to sort of go into a load of that now and talk about that, but it's a very interesting and a very moving and poignant point of British history, and it changed a lot of things regarding British sports, football in particular, of course. And I'm not sure how much money this song raised for charity, but hopefully it was a lot to put into the Hillsborough Victims Appeal Fund. So yeah, I'm not really going to say, oh yeah, this is a great track or this is crap. It is what it is. It's a cover of a very well-known song from the 60s. And it's for charity, and it was for a really bloody good cause, in my opinion. And this is kind of making me feel a little bit sad, actually, just seeing these floral tributes and everything again. But yeah, that was a touching number one. Glad it was number one. Paul McCartney was in that. Yep. Okay, playing out with Wasp. WASP. Did they ever say exactly what WASP stood for? I know my brother always used to tell me it stood for We Are Sex Perverts. But I don't know if he was just having me on. I'll look it up, try and find out. But perhaps it's one of those things where it doesn't necessarily stand for anything, it's just written to look like an acronym. Well, here is Wasp playing us out. And the credits are coming on, so as always, that is my cue to say thank you for joining me for this edition of Top of the Pops Reaction. Enjoyed this episode. I thought there was some good tracks on it. Thought that it was quite a strong episode all in all. Not the strongest that I've seen over the course of the last however long I've been doing this, but pretty good nonetheless. And thank you all for joining in and watching along with me. Please join me again for my next Top of the Pops reaction video. Cheers everyone. See ya!